Hello and welcome back to the podcast. Today, I want to zoom in on a word that we all use, probably dozens of times a day, the word important. We talk about an important meeting, an important feature, an important deadline. It's a great word, it does its job. But sometimes, when everything is described as important, it can be difficult to communicate what is truly the highest priority. When you say something is very, very important, it communicates urgency, but it doesn't always sound as precise or as professional as it could. So today, we're going to explore a technique to make your language more impactful and specific. This technique revolves around understanding a special category of adjectives called extreme or non-gradable adjectives. Let's start with the basics. Most adjectives are gradable. Think of them like a volume knob. You can have a task that is a little important, quite important, very important, or extremely important. You can grade it, or turn the level up and down. This is perfectly normal and correct. However, English also has extreme adjectives. These words already have the idea of very or extremely built into them. They are already at the maximum level. Our main word pair for today is a perfect example of this. The gradable adjective is important. The extreme versions are words like critical or vital. When something is critical, it means it's so important that the success of everything else depends on it. Think of a critical bug fix. If that bug isn't fixed, perhaps users can't log in, making the entire application useless. When something is vital, it's essential for life or existence. For a project, this means it's fundamental to its purpose or survival. The new data privacy update isn't just important, it's vital for legal compliance and for maintaining user trust. Now, here is the key part of the technique. Because these extreme adjectives like critical and vital are already at maximum strength, we don't usually modify them with words like very or a little. It sounds a bit strange to say, he is a little bit dead, right? Dead is an absolute state. Extreme adjectives work in a similar way. So, saying, this task is very critical, is something you might hear, but it can sound unnatural to many native speakers in a business context. Instead, we use a different set of adverbs to emphasize them, like absolutely, totally, or completely. These adverbs don't grade the adjective, they simply agree with its extreme nature. Let's put this into a real-world scenario. Imagine you're in a project update meeting. You could say, updating our server's security certificate is very important. Everyone understands that, but listen to the difference in impact if you say, updating our server's security certificate is absolutely critical. If we don't do it by Friday, our site will be flagged as insecure, and we'll lose traffic. The second sentence uses a stronger, more precise word, and it carries more weight. It clearly signals that this is the number one priority, with serious consequences. Here's another example. Getting stakeholder buy-in for the Q3 marketing budget is very important. That's fine, but to be more precise, you could say, getting stakeholder buy-in for the Q3 marketing budget is vital. Without it, we can't launch the campaign. The word vital communicates that the project cannot proceed or live without this budget approval. This concept applies to many other words we use at work. Let's look at another common pair. The gradable adjective is good. We can have a good quarter, a very good result. The extreme version could be excellent or fantastic. So, your team just finished a campaign. You're presenting the results. You could say, the click-through rate on the new ad creative was very good. Again, nothing wrong with that. But if the results were truly exceptional, you could level up your language. The click-through rate on the new ad creative was absolutely fantastic. The word fantastic has that wow factor built in. It sounds more confident and conveys a stronger sense of success than just very good. Let's try one more pair, this time on the negative side. A common gradable adjective is difficult. A task can be a little difficult or very difficult. An extreme version of this is impossible. Imagine a discussion about project scope. A product manager asks if you can add a complex new feature before the launch next week. You could say, that will be very, very difficult to do in 3 days. This might signal to the manager that it's hard, but may be achievable with pressure or overtime. It leaves room for negotiation. However, if you know it truly cannot be done, you need a stronger, more definite word. I'm afraid adding that feature in 3 days is completely impossible. The necessary API doesn't exist yet. Using the word impossible clearly and professionally closes the door on the request and moves the conversation toward finding an alternative solution, rather than debating feasibility. So, the main takeaway here isn't to memorize a long list of extreme adjectives. It's to understand the concept. When you feel yourself about to say, very, something, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, is there a single, stronger, more precise word I can use instead? Is this just important, or is it critical? Was the outcome just good, or was it excellent? Is the task just difficult, or is it actually impossible? By choosing these more powerful, extreme adjectives, and pairing them with adverbs like absolutely or completely, you don't just expand your vocabulary. You make your communication clearer, more precise, and more impactful. You help your team and stakeholders immediately understand the true priority or state of a situation, which is a vital skill in any fast-moving tech or marketing environment. Upbeat, thoughtful intro music fades out. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. You know, in our world of agile sprints, product roadmaps, and marketing campaigns, time is everything. But it's also flexible. Things change. A key dependency is delayed, an unexpected bug appears, or market feedback forces a change in strategy. And when that happens, we need to adjust our timelines. Today, we're going to focus on the language we use to talk about these adjustments. Specifically, we're diving deep into a very common, very useful phrasal verb, to push back. You've probably seen this in Slack messages or heard it in stand-up meetings. It means to delay something, to move it to a later time or date. But here's the important question. Is it always the right phrase to use? This brings us to a technique that can really elevate your professional English, understanding register. Register is about choosing the right level of formality for the right situation. It's the difference between sounding like a trusted colleague and sounding like a polished professional addressing a client. For the idea of delaying something, we have a fantastic pair of phrases that illustrate this perfectly. Our informal, everyday choice is to push back. And our more formal, professional choice is to postpone. Let's start with the one you probably hear most often inside your team, to push back. It's active, it's a little bit physical in its imagery. You can almost feel the pressure of moving a date on a calendar. It's perfect for internal discussions where speed and clarity are more important than formal etiquette. Imagine you're a developer talking to your project manager on a team chat. You might type something like, "Hey, the new API documentation is a bit unclear. I think we'll need to push back the integration task by a couple of days." This is perfect. It's direct, clear, and uses the natural language of the team. Your project manager immediately understands the situation. Or maybe you're in a marketing team's weekly sync. The lead designer says, "We're still waiting on the final copy from the content team. Can we push back the launch of the new landing page to next Thursday?" Again, this is the ideal phrase. It's collaborative and efficient. Using a more formal word here might even sound a bit strange. If the designer said, "I would like to request that we postpone the launch of the landing page," it might sound a little too serious or distant for a quick internal meeting. It creates a subtle barrier where one isn't needed. So, for internal team chats, sprint planning, and daily stand-ups, to push back is your go-to phrase. It's friendly, efficient, and shows you're part of the team's internal rhythm. Now, let's switch gears. Let's put on our client-facing hat. You've just discovered that a critical third-party service your project depends on is having an outage. This means you will not be able to deliver the beta version to your client on the agreed-upon date. This is a sensitive situation. You need to communicate this delay professionally, maintaining the client's trust and confidence. This is where to postpone shines. It's more neutral, more official, and carries a weight of seriousness that is appropriate for external communication. If you wrote to the client, "Hi, we have to push back the beta delivery," it might not land well. It could sound too casual, as if you're not taking their deadline seriously. It minimizes the importance of the commitment you made. Instead, you would draft a careful, professional email. It might say something like, "Dear client, we are writing to inform you of a development regarding the project timeline. Due to a temporary, unforeseen issue with a key third-party service, we recommend that we postpone the beta delivery, which was originally scheduled for this Friday. We expect to have a new, confirmed date for you within 48 hours. We sincerely apologize for any inconvenience this may cause and are taking all necessary steps to mitigate the delay." Do you feel the difference? To postpone signals that this is a formal change to the project plan. It's a word that respects the formal nature of a business agreement. It shows you are managing the situation with care and professionalism. It's not just a casual shift, it's a managed, documented change. You would use to postpone in official announcements, client emails, project status reports, and legal or contractual documents. Let's consider one more example. Imagine your company is organizing a big webinar for potential customers. An internal email to the marketing team might say, "Looks like our main speaker is sick. We'll have to push back the webinar by a week." Quick, clear, and internal. But the public announcement on your website and social media would say, "The upcoming webinar on advanced SEO strategies has been postponed. All registered attendees will be notified of the new date shortly. We thank you for your understanding." Again, to postpone is for the public, for the official record. So, the core idea is simple, but powerful. The action is the same, delaying something. But the word you choose sends a very different signal about the context and your relationship with the person you're speaking to. Think of it as a slider for formality. On one end, you have the casual, internal phrase to push back. On the other end, you have the formal, external-facing word to postpone. Your job, as a precise communicator, is to know which situation you're in and to choose the word that fits perfectly. It's a small detail that makes a big difference in how you are perceived, as a friendly teammate, and as a reliable, professional partner to your clients. So next time a deadline needs to move, take a brief moment. Ask yourself, who am I talking to? And then you'll know whether it's time to push back or to postpone. Upbeat, warm intro music fades slightly into the background and then out. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. Let's start with a situation I'm sure you're very familiar with. Imagine you're in a weekly performance review meeting, looking at a buy dashboard on the main screen. You see the high-level metrics for your latest marketing campaign. Overall impressions are up. Click-through rate is stable. That's the big picture, the 10,000-foot view. But then, you notice that while traffic from one region has skyrocketed, the conversion rate for that same region is surprisingly low. The big numbers tell you what happened, but they don't tell you why. To get to the answer, you have to go deeper, to investigate the details behind the summary. In business English, especially in data-driven fields like ours, there's a perfect phrase for this action of moving from a general overview to a more specific, detailed level. Today, we're going to focus on the verb phrase to drill down. It's an image, really. Think of a drill cutting down through a surface to see what's underneath. That's exactly what we're doing with data. We are moving vertically from a high level to a lower, more detailed one. Now, the key to using this phrase naturally isn't just memorizing its definition. It's about learning the words that it loves to be with, its collocations. This is how you go from knowing a word to truly owning it in conversation. The most common and useful partner for drill down is the preposition, into. You drill down into something. This specifies exactly what you are investigating. It connects the action to the object of your analysis. For example, in that meeting, you might say, "Okay, the overall numbers look interesting. Let's drill down into the user demographics for that specific region to understand who we're attracting." See how that works? You're not just looking deeper, you're looking deeper into a specific dataset. Here's another example you might hear in a product meeting. The user engagement metric is down by 5%. We need to drill down into the session data to see where users are dropping off. It's precise, it's clear, and it's the standard way to say it. Slightly less common, but also useful, is the preposition, on. You can drill down on a specific problem or topic. This usage tends to emphasize focus on a single, particular point of concern. For instance, if a project manager is reviewing bug reports, they might say, "We're seeing a lot of tickets related to payment failures. For this afternoon's technical sync, I want everyone to drill down on that specific issue." It directs the team's focus very sharply. Okay, so we have drilled down into the data, and drilled down on an issue. What happens when you're already looking at a detailed view, but you need to go even more granular? This is where adverbs become your best friend. The most common one is further. Using drill down further signals that the process of analysis is already underway, and you're proposing the next step. Imagine you're looking at your website's traffic sources. You've already seen that organic search is the top driver. The next logical step would be to say, "Great, organic search is our strongest channel. Now, can we drill down further and segment that by landing page?" It shows a continuous, logical progression of thought. Similarly, you can use the adverb deeper to create the phrase drill down deeper. This has almost the same meaning as further, but perhaps adds a bit more emphasis on the depth of the analysis you're about to do. You might use it when you feel the surface level data is misleading or incomplete. For example, the A/B test results show that version B1, but the difference is very small. I think we need to drill down deeper and look at the behavior of new versus returning users before we make a final decision. Finally, let's talk about a collocation that is incredibly important when you are discussing the features of a tool, a platform, or a report. I'm talking about the phrase, the ability to drill down. As IT and marketing professionals, we build and use tools every day. A key feature of any good analytics dashboard is that it doesn't just show static, high-level numbers. It's interactive. It allows the user to explore. So, when you are describing requirements for a new business intelligence tool, you could say, for this sales dashboard, a critical feature is the ability to drill down from a country-level view to a city level, and even to an individual sales representative's performance. This phrase perfectly captures a functional requirement in a very professional way. So let's put it all together. You can see how these different collocations can be chained together in a real business discussion. A team lead might start a meeting by saying, "This quarter's summary report is now live. I want everyone to take a look, and then in our next meeting, we'll drill down into the performance of our key accounts." During that next meeting, after some discussion, she might say, "It seems like our new enterprise clients are performing below expectations. Let's drill down further on that segment." And a data analyst on the team might add, "I agree." The dashboard gives us the ability to drill down into their product usage data, which should help us find the root cause. By learning these chunks of language, drill down into, drill down further, the ability to drill down, you're not just learning a new phrase. You're learning how it actually lives and breathes in the context of your work. It helps you sound more natural, more precise, and more confident when you're discussing data and analysis. That's our deep dive for today. Try to listen for this phrase in your next meeting or when you're reading an article about analytics. Thanks for tuning in, and join us again tomorrow for another look at the language of business. Warm, upbeat outro music fades in. Upbeat, warm intro music fades slightly into the background and then out. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. Let's get straight into a word that you'll hear all the time when you're dealing with data, project plans, or any kind of reporting. The word is granular. Have you ever been in a meeting where someone presents a chart showing overall monthly sales, and your boss says, "This is good, but it doesn't tell us the whole story. I need to see more." That more they're asking for is granularity. Granular means highly detailed, broken down into the smallest possible pieces. Think of grains of sand or sugar. Each one is a tiny, individual unit. When we talk about granular data, we're talking about looking at those individual units, not just the big pile. So, a granular report on website traffic wouldn't just show you 10,000 visitors per day. It might show you the traffic broken down by the hour, by the specific city the user is in, by the type of device they used, and by the exact ad they clicked on to get there. It's that level of deep, specific detail. So you could say, the summary is useful, but for our A/B testing analysis, we need to look at the data at a more granular level. Now, the best way to really understand a word like granular is to compare it with its neighbors, its synonyms and its opposites. It helps you see not just what it means, but what it doesn't mean, and when to choose it over another similar word. Let's start with a very common synonym, detailed. You might be thinking, isn't this the same thing? And you're right, they are very close. But there's a subtle difference in feeling. Detailed is a great, all-purpose word for something that has a lot of information. You could ask for a detailed project plan. In that sentence, detailed means the plan includes many steps, dates, and responsibilities. It's thorough. However, granular often has a stronger connection to data and the idea of breaking something down into its fundamental components. If you ask for a granular project plan, you're implying you want to see not just the main tasks, but every single subtask, perhaps even measured in hours rather than days. So, while a detailed report might list expenses by department, a granular report would list every single purchase order. Detailed is about a lot of information. Granular is about the smallest possible units of information. Another word you could use is fine-grained. This is a very close synonym to granular, and in many IT contexts, they are almost interchangeable. Fine-grained also suggests a high level of detail and control. You often hear it used in technical discussions about system access or permissions. For example, our new admin panel allows for fine-grained control over user permissions, so we can decide exactly which features each team member can access. Here, fine-grained emphasizes precision and the ability to control things at a very small scale. It feels a little more technical than granular, but both paint a very similar picture. So you have granular, detailed, and fine-grained. Detailed is a good general term. Granular and fine-grained are more specialized for data and systems, suggesting you're breaking things down to their smallest parts. Okay, so what about the opposite? What if you don't want the tiny details? The most common and useful opposite is high-level. A high-level view is like looking at a map from an airplane. You see the big picture, the major cities, the rivers, the coastline, but not the individual streets. In a business context, this is often where you start a discussion. You might say, before we get into the granular weekly metrics, let's start with a high-level overview of our quarterly performance. A high-level summary, or an executive summary, gives the main points without all the supporting data. Another fantastic word, especially when you're talking about data, is aggregate. Aggregate data is information that has been gathered and combined. It's the total, the average, the summary. It is the direct opposite of granular data. For instance, the total number of website users in a month is an aggregate number. The list of every single user session, with timestamps and pages visited, is granular data. A perfect sentence to show this contrast would be, the aggregate conversion rate is 3%, but we need to analyze the granular data to understand why users from mobile devices are converting at a lower rate. You can see how these two words work together to clearly express a complex data request. So, to recap, when you need to talk about data or plans at their most detailed, smallest component level, granular is a fantastic, professional choice. If you want a slightly more technical-sounding alternative, especially for systems control, fine-grained works well. If you just mean thorough or with lots of information, in a more general sense, detailed is a safe and clear option. And when you want to zoom out and see the big picture, you can ask for a high-level overview. If you're specifically talking about combined, summarized data, you're looking at aggregate data. Next time you're in a meeting looking at a dashboard, listen for these words. And more importantly, try using them yourself. Instead of just saying, we need more details, consider if what you really mean is, can we get a more granular breakdown of this data? It's a small change that can make you sound much more precise and confident. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode. Warm, upbeat outro music fades in. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. Today, let's take a deep dive into a word that you probably hear a dozen times a week, especially if you work in a large team or with multiple stakeholders. That word is align. Now, you likely already know the basic meaning. To align is to get things in a straight line, or to bring people into agreement. But its real power in business English comes from its word family. By understanding the different forms this word can take, using common prefixes and suffixes, you can express complex project management and team dynamic situations with incredible precision. It's the difference between saying, we don't agree, and being able to describe the exact nature of that disagreement and the steps needed to fix it. So today, we're going to explore that family tree, starting with the verb itself and branching out. The verb, to align, is the action. It's the doing word. You might say, before we launch this feature, we need to align with the legal team on the new privacy policy. This is a direct call to action. It means we have to initiate a conversation, share documents, and reach a mutual understanding. The work of aligning hasn't happened yet, we are stating the need for it. It's an active, ongoing process. You're not just sending an email, you're taking responsibility for creating that shared understanding. So, what happens when that action is successful? You achieve alignment. This is our first and most important family member. By adding the suffix ment, we've changed the word from an action into a noun. Alignment is the state of agreement, the goal we are trying to reach. It's the destination. You'll hear this used constantly in project planning. For example, a project manager might say in a kickoff meeting, my primary goal for this week is to achieve full alignment on the project scope and timeline. What does that actually mean in practice? It means that every single person in that room, the engineer, the designer, the marketer, the product manager, leaves with the exact same understanding of what needs to be built and by when. There are no hidden assumptions. Alignment is the opposite of ambiguity. It's a state of shared clarity, and it's what successful projects are built on. Of course, things don't always go so smoothly. And that brings us to our next word, misaligned. Here we've added the prefix, mis, which usually means wrongly or badly. When teams or goals are misaligned, it means they are working against each other, often without even realizing it. This is a very common problem, and being able to name it is the first step to fixing it. Imagine your marketing team is running a campaign focused on attracting new, small business customers. They are measuring success by the number of new sign-ups. At the same time, the sales team has been given a target to increase revenue from large, enterprise clients. They are working hard, but their goals are fundamentally misaligned. The marketing efforts aren't generating the leads the sales team needs, and the sales team can't capitalize on the leads marketing is providing. The result is wasted effort and frustration. Being able to say, "I think our team goals have become misaligned," is a very professional and non-blaming way to point out a serious strategic problem. It focuses on the situation, not the people. So, you've identified that things are misaligned. What do you do next? This is where our final word comes in, realignment. The prefix re means again. So, realignment is the process of aligning again. It's the action you take to fix the state of being misaligned. It's a course correction. A realignment is often a formal process, like a dedicated meeting or workshop. You might hear a team lead say, "The client changed the requirements, so we need a project realignment to update our sprint goals." This isn't a sign of failure. In fast-moving fields like tech and marketing, it's a sign of a healthy, adaptable team. A realignment acknowledges that the original plan is no longer valid and that a new, shared understanding needs to be created. It's a proactive step to get everyone back on the same path, working towards the same objective. It's how you move from that problematic state of being misaligned back toward that ideal state of alignment. So let's quickly review. We started with the action, to align. When you succeed, you achieve the state of alignment. If things go wrong and objectives diverge, teams become misaligned. And the process of fixing that problem, of getting everyone back on the same page, is called a realignment. By mastering this small but powerful word family, you can describe the entire life cycle of team collaboration: the goal, the problem, and the solution. Try to listen for these words in your next meeting. Notice how they are used not just as buzzwords, but as precise tools to manage expectations and guide teams toward a common goal. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode. Podcast intro music fades in and then fades to a gentle background hum. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. Let's start today with a familiar scene. Imagine you're in a weekly performance meeting, and your colleague is presenting the results from a recent A/B test on a new landing page. They pull up a chart on the screen, and the conversion rate for variant B isn't just a little better, it's dramatically higher than the control. Your colleague points to the number and says, "As you can see, this result was very surprising." Now, is there anything wrong with that sentence? Absolutely not. It's clear, it's grammatically correct, and everyone understands what it means. But in business communication, especially when we're presenting data and trying to make an impact, sometimes we want a word that carries more weight. A word that does the work of very surprising all by itself and lands with more precision and power. Today, we're going to look at a simple technique to make your descriptions more vivid and professional. It's all about understanding the difference between what we can call base adjectives and extreme adjectives. This little bit of knowledge can really sharpen your vocabulary, especially when you're talking about results, problems, or feedback. The core idea is this: many common adjectives, what we're calling base adjectives, can be graded. You can have a little bit of something, or a lot of it. For example, a task can be a little important, or very important. A report can be good, or very good. We use adverbs like very, a bit, quite, and really, to show where on the scale it falls. But then we have extreme adjectives. These words already have the idea of very built into them. They represent the far end of the scale. And because they're already extreme, it sounds a bit unnatural to modify them with very. Instead, we use adverbs that emphasize their completeness, like absolutely, totally, or completely. Let's go back to our first example, surprising. This is a great base adjective. It means something was unexpected. You could say, the click-through rate was slightly surprising, or, the click-through rate was very surprising. It works perfectly. But what if the result wasn't just unexpected, but it was so far beyond any projection that it was almost shocking? This is where an extreme adjective comes in. The extreme counterpart to surprising is staggering. Staggering means deeply shocking or astonishing. The word itself has a physical feeling to it. To stagger is to walk unsteadily, as if you're about to fall. So, a staggering result is one that metaphorically knocks you off your feet. Let's put it into context. If your campaign increased leads by 15% when you expected 10%, you could say, the 15% lift was surprising and a welcome result. But if your campaign increased leads by 400%, that's not just very surprising. A better, more impactful way to describe it would be, the 400% lift in leads was absolutely staggering. Do you hear the difference? Very surprising tells us the fact. Absolutely staggering communicates the asterisk feeling and the immense scale of that fact. Notice we use absolutely, not very. Saying very staggering sounds redundant, like saying very huge. The power is already in the word itself. Let's look at another pair that's incredibly common in any project-based work. The base adjective is important. We use this word all day long. This is an important meeting. Please review this important document. It's very important that we stick to the timeline. It's a useful, all-purpose word for signaling priority. The extreme version of important could be crucial or vital. If something is crucial, it is decisive or critical to the success or failure of something. If it's vital, it's absolutely necessary or essential. You cannot succeed without it. Both words imply a much higher level of importance. Consider this. Your project manager might say, it's important to update your task status every day so we can track progress. This is about good practice and staying organized. But if the main database server is about to be migrated, they might say, it is absolutely crucial that you back up all your data before 5 p.m. If you don't, it could be lost permanently. See the change in stakes? The first situation is important for efficiency. The second is crucial for the project's survival. It's the difference between something you should do and something you must do. And again, notice the modifier. We naturally say, absolutely crucial, or totally vital, not very crucial. Let's do one more pair, this one a bit more personal but still very relevant to our professional lives. The base adjective is tired. After a long day of meetings, you might say, I'm pretty tired. Or after working a couple of extra hours to finish a report, I'm very tired. It's a normal feeling. The extreme adjective for tired is exhausted. Exhausted means you have no mental or physical energy left. You are completely drained. You wouldn't use this word for a normal workday. You save it for those truly demanding periods. For example, after a week-long, non-stop effort to fix a critical bug before a product launch, you could say, after that deployment, the whole team was just absolutely exhausted. It captures a level of fatigue that very, very tired just doesn't quite express. So, to wrap up today's segment, the key takeaway is to recognize these pairs of base and extreme adjectives. When you want to describe something with more force and precision, think about moving up the scale. From surprising to staggering, from important to crucial, from tired to exhausted. And remember the simple rule for modifiers. Base adjectives like surprising and important work well with very. Extreme adjectives like staggering and crucial already contain the meaning of very, so they pair more naturally with absolutely or totally. My final piece of advice is not to overuse these powerful words. Their strength comes from being used in the right situations. Save absolutely staggering for the results that truly deserve it, and your words will have much more impact. Try to notice these words as you read and listen this week. You'll start seeing them everywhere. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you next time. Podcast outro music fades in.